Friends and improvisers, welcome back to In Conversation, our monthly series of interviews. So you are in the right place if you're interested in vocal improvisation. You might be an improviser, you might be a singer, you might be someone that moves or uses improvisation in a completely different way, or you might be just interested and want to find out more. Very welcome. My name is Jaka. I'm the current producer of The Well, and today's conversation is titled Intelligence in Spontaneous Creation. Okay, quite broad. Sometimes the themes are very specific, but this time we just wanted to have the most fun we can and talk to a brilliant improviser, vocal percussionist, and much more. Tiago, or Rizumik, as you might know him. And let's go straight in and see if he is available and ready to join us. Calling Portugal. Hi. Wow, I love the background. Is it real?
Hello. It is real.
I'm impressed.
Real sponge.
Are you in a studio?
I'm in my home studio where I usually do my classes and I work on the computer. This is my small studio, yes.
Wonderful. Well, Tiago, thank you for joining. It's a pleasure. As I just
It is,
said, we have a very broad theme, so pretty much we can talk about anything we'd like to.
which is
So,
great.
which is great. I mean, we're going to get to the whole question of intelligence and all the rest. I just wanted to start by asking how you are, where you are, anything you want to share right at the beginning.
Well, thank you. First of all, it's really a pleasure to be here with you, and to share this conversation with you. Haven't seen you in a while. I miss making
Exactly.
music. I miss making music with you and having fun. So it is nice to have this opportunity to connect, even though it is virtually. Well, I feel good. I came recently from a nice retreat that I did with our good friend Sofia Ribeiro in Spain in her house, and that was a very special one. I was also in her house for the first time. It's a beautiful place. We had a really nice group. I was able to walk around Barcelona for a couple of days, so I feel really good. It was nice. And now I'm back at home. Just recently also celebrated my daughter's first anniversary. So we had a nice
Yay.
party. Yeah, we had a nice party here at home with friends and family. So that was really nice too. And the rest is just a busy life of doing things, maintaining things, keeping it going and flowing. And so, yeah, it feels
Hmm.
good.
Yeah, I saw some of your photos from Barcelona, especially your stories. You know, you have a good
Yeah,
eye, good
I
moments, random
I love
moments, people.
Yeah, exactly. I love to keep that connection with photography. I've always had a connection with photography. Back in the days when I was touring and doing some gigs abroad, I would always carry my SLR, and I would be the guy in the group that would take pictures like everywhere. And I would photograph people and places, architecture. I've always really enjoyed expressing through photography. So now I rely mostly on my phone, but I love to share some stories of random things that my eye catches whenever I'm in a place somewhere. And yeah, I still keep that connection alive with photography because it's an art form that I really appreciate. And we use it also in vocal improv as a reference, right? As an inspiration. Sometimes we can have an image or a photograph or something that is going to just trigger us to go somewhere, to go to places, to lead the improvisation in certain directions. So I like that mix and match of different disciplines of arts, like movement, creative writing, photography, drawing, and painting. I like to mix all of the acting as well, and physical theater and clown, and to mix all of those things with what we do mostly, which is vocal music, vocal improvised
Yes.
music.
So talking about mixing it up, I have a first question which is based maybe on your performance experience. So I was
Mm.
wondering, how did that influence you as an improviser? So if you imagine maybe being on bigger stages, touring a lot, and that whole period, which is still ongoing, but maybe it was a little bit more intense in the past. What
Yeah.
has that taught you about being a good singer, improviser? How does it really relate to then maybe being, without any script? Because I'm sure you were improvising, but also you were doing bigger productions that were a little bit more set. So what do you think? How does that relate with you as an improviser, and what has that taught you?
That is a very good question. First of all, let me briefly say that I basically realized that I was more comfortable in improvisation and that it was my main language by observing what I needed to do in those scenarios. So I kind of started realizing in my life that I was a bit more stressed or under pressure if I had to rehearse something, if I had to learn something, if I had a script. So that would put me a bit more in this uncomfortable zone. Whereas if you would just tell me, go to the stage and do something, whatever you want, whatever you like, whatever you feel connected to in the moment, then I would feel comfortable. That would just bring out a certain joy, a certain spark in me. And then I realized, okay, this is truly improvisation. Uh, and this is what I enjoy doing, and this is what I'm good at. So being in bigger productions and performing and touring and performing in bigger stages, like shows that are defined, that are set in a way. Some of them I would have a slight room for improvisation, but not a lot. Most of the things were rehearsed and they were scripted. Um, and what that taught me is that in order to be present in the moment and to use all of your tools and resources as an improviser, I would say that the main work you have to do is to be connected in life in general, is to learn from all the different things in life, from the broad spectrum. And so by cultivating yourself as a person, as a human being, whether by doing cultural or artistic or creative things, or just hanging out with the people you love, or performing, and being in some sort of discipline, because you have to be constant and regular and versatile and this and that. So all those things basically stretch the muscles that then you're going to use in improvisation. So I am more comfortable improvising the more I feel balanced in life and the more I feel that I'm working on myself as an individual. And so those moments where I'm in bigger productions and experiencing something different, to me, that's a compliment to improvisation. That is being in a different scenario and putting myself in different circumstances that not only nourish me and make me learn certain things about myself and others and show business in general and entertainment, but then it also broadens me as a human being, and that then, if I'm connected in the moment, that will be present in improvisation.
Yeah. So maybe to dig deeper into this whole question of intelligence, right? I
Mm,
almost want to ask you, how would you define it for yourself within improvisation? What is intelligence? And then how do we practice that part, which is not necessarily the musical, it's not necessarily just about the skills, it's not necessarily performance. I think
mm.
intelligence is everywhere, but also can be practiced. So maybe just your definition, what it makes you think of, and then how do you practice that part of improvisation?
I think it is also connected with what I mentioned now. I would say that intelligence in improvisation is mostly connected to the concept of sensibility. Because when we are improvising, for most part, especially when we're collaborating with other people, when we're either in a collective or in a group or in a choir, and you're either soloing or supporting or creating music together, you have to be quick, you have to be sharp, you have to practice hearing. You have to be attentive in what comes to hearing, and put yourself in that presence in the moment to see, to analyze how you feel emotionally and intellectually in the moment, how you are in the space. And so all of that observation, and your skills and your tools and your abilities and your reflexes, all of that's going to come into play, fine tuning, into that sensibility that I immediately connect with intelligence. Because obviously, being an improviser, you know this, we use the tools that we gathered throughout life, either consciously or subconsciously, but they're all, even if we're more connected to the source and we are in some sort of trance, we're still using things that came across our path in the past. So intelligence there is knowing in the moment how to use them, right? And sometimes that means that you don't really have much time to adjust or adapt. It's a question of seconds sometimes. It's a question, and that creates the magic in improvisation. In those magical moments, let's say that you're like, for example, you're improvising with someone you don't know, or that you're meeting for the first time, and you stop at the same time, or you have that pause at the same time, and then you go back to singing at the same time, and then you do that perfect harmony that sounds really nice, and then the rhythm creates this really nice groove, and all of a sudden people think that that was rehearsed, or that was a song, and you think we were just in the moment improvising. And I think when that happens, it's because you are attuned to that intelligence. You are using that intelligence in improvisation because you're aware, and you are immediately delivering something that is going to be useful to the piece itself, to you as an individual, and to the other people that you're collaborating with. So you're creating support, you're creating structure, and you're elevating everything musically and energetically. And that means you're an intelligent artist, you're an intelligent improviser, because it's like a radio. It's like if you're not using it to the fullest potential, there's a certain white noise interference. You can still hear it, but there's a little in the background, right? Versus it being super clear. It's just clear. It's very pristine. And so when that happens, I would say that you're at the highest level of this so-called intelligence, of this sensibility of relating to the moment, to the space, the energy of the space, the energy of the audience, your own energy, and the energy of your collaborators. So it's a multidisciplinary and kind of complex or layered thing that we are playing with constantly at all times when we're improvising. And that's what makes it so beautiful to me, so magical, so intricate, so
Mhm.
uh, so full and rich in terms of flavor. Yeah.
Yeah, improvisation is definitely a complex system. And I guess
Yeah.
why I like this definition of intelligence is because it's not really about rationality, because rationality
Mm.
is too slow, right? These are all millisecond decisions. So it comes back to intuition or the body or other places, not just the rational. It's there, but it's not driving. It cannot drive
Exactly.
because everything is happening too fast. So I wonder then, as you described it, what about some practical tools that you'd like? So if someone's listening and they like the idea, they kind of get, have a sense of what is needed or when it's working, right? Which are some
Hmm.
of your favorite practical tools or exercises or things that come to mind that maybe really helped you in keeping this
Well,
in mind when you're improvising?
that's a good point. And I think it changes a lot from person to person because we all have different practices that nourish us. But as you said, it is definitely an intuitional and emotional process, even more than rational, more than it is rational. I would say that this practice of being present, of constantly putting yourself or bringing yourself back to presence, which is a difficult thing because there's there's way too many distractions in this world we live in, and we are constantly being bombarded by things that want our attention. And so bringing yourself back to presence is, it can be as simple as it is complex. So it all depends on perspective and mindset and how you look at it. Um, I would say that one of the most important things is breathing. Being able to be aware of how you're breathing and how you can change your breathing to be more attuned to the moment. That is one big component. Meditation in general, I would say, whether it's sitting down, closing your eyes and meditating, or an active meditation of walking in the street, going to a place that you don't know and seeing what you can observe? What are the details that that draw your attention? So being exposed to new realities, let's say, definitely the contact with nature, however, whatever that means to you. So going to the beach, going for a walk in the forest, um, climbing a mountain, diving into the ocean. So all of the contact with nature in general, I think, brings us this more pure form of connection to what I usually call the source. And it also helps in adjusting that flow that you're feeling, that you also feel when you're improvising, because you know it as well as I do that when we're improvising and we feel that we're connected, that means we're in the flow. We're feeling the flow passing through us. And this is regardless of what's coming out musically. So it's regardless of the notes that you're choosing, of the rhythm that is happening, the melody that is happening. So that is the outcome. That's almost like the final result of it. That's the output, the creative output. But what's happening beneath is just this sense of balance and connection that translates into flow. And I would say that, yes, a good conversation with people you love, family or friends, contact with nature, passive or active meditations, and just this practice of awareness helps a lot, as well as listening to music. Listen to different kinds of things. Try to practice this eclectic thing of listening to things you like, discovering new things, but also listening to things that perhaps you don't know or you don't like. Asking people for suggestions. What are you listening to these days? Let me let me listen to it and see how I feel. See what that brings up in me. Um, I would say that it is very important to expose yourself to contexts out of the usual for you, because I think that expands your comfort zone and it kind of stretches your limits. And as I usually say in the workshops, that is a good thing. I usually tell people in my workshops or the retreats that I like to comfortably bring people out of their comfort zones. So we create containers that are safe, that are fun, that are fruitful for development, for transformation, for observation. And then we have people create new scenarios there. But what we want in improvisation is this sense of authenticity. And I think that comes from your personal truth, which is emotional and intuitive more than anything else. But when you feel authentic in what you're doing, then people will feel it, even if they don't like or even if they don't connect to what you're doing specifically, musically. But they do feel that connection because it's energetic. So working on your energy is definitely the most important thing. And the core, the structure of our energy has to come through our breath, which is the ongoing, constant thing that is always there. So that's why oftentimes it helps when you feel like you get away from this presence, or you get uncomfortable, or you get stressed or anxious. Go back to your breath, take a couple deep breaths, or see how your breath feels. And usually that helps. And it's a very instant thing. So I would say that's one of the most important ones of all the ones I
Thank
mentioned.
you. Yeah, maybe also to mention oral meditations, deep listening as a
Yeah.
really great practice. When you're mentioning flow, I'm also interested in this distinction between your own individual flow and collective flow. There's some brilliant
Hmm.
research about how actually to pay attention also to the collective flow and what does that mean. So me in
Hmm.
flow, but also me in flow with others, and how I
Yeah.
can kind of dig deeper into that. And as you were speaking, I kind of had a question. So maybe we create a duality here between this very open-minded presence and then maybe being on stage and being a master of something and being in the industry, which can, I don't know, to my understanding, sometimes also brings up the question of ego or this question of
Mm.
performativity. So I almost wonder, these two seem maybe from the outside quite different. This emptiness, this presence, and on the other hand, this performativity, which can also be quite, I don't know, yeah, can also become self-serving. So I wonder, because
Mhm.
we're systems where within the music industry it's not all created so that you go onto the stage with being. It's not necessarily promoted as such. I mean, that's not how the music industry is built, right? For always having that presence on stage and for that being the main virtue of it. So I wonder, how do you stand with these kinds of questions? It's not a duality, but if we, view it as such, well, how does it make you feel? What does it make you think about?
I understand what you're saying, but yeah, at this moment, I don't see it as a duality. I actually see those two areas as very complementary. Um, I think we can, I think we can be really present in performance, and I think we can incorporate all of these things together because also it is inevitable, I think, when we're improvising, we are performing. Even if it's something very uncommitted and informal, we are performing. Anything we do in life can be seen as a form of performance in a way, right? When we're cooking, when we're writing, when we're speaking, we are kind of performing. But then there's the performance that has more implications or a bigger commitment, which is when you get paid to perform a certain thing in front of a certain audience. So there are more factors to take into consideration because let's say the context is a bit more complex. And then there's informal performances, small performances, little things that we do here and there that we obviously, for most part, don't think as of performance, or we don't think that we're performing when we're doing them, but we are. We are. Almost everything is performative in a way. We are constantly creating things. So when you're able to incorporate that sense of trust and in a way surrendering, it's the emptiness you were talking about and that I also talk about very frequently. Going back to point zero, the reset button, the just get empty, release everything that might be blocking you, and then create from that space. For me, those are all tools of trying to be more and more authentic. Whether you're on a stage or whether you're on a workshop or a retreat or a circle singing session and performing with other people. And I'm also very interested in what you said about the collective intelligence, the collective aspect rather than because the collective, as I see it, is a combination of the individual processes. So when you're in a room with, let's say, 10 other people, all of you are creating this one big form of energy that is composed by all the individual forms of energy. And so if all people are aware of all these factors and they've been working on them throughout their lives in one way or another, then I would say in this mathematical equation of improvisation, it is way more likely to achieve a pleasant result, both for yourself and for whoever is listening, if anybody is listening. Because you're aware of these aspects, you're working on them in general. And so when you're performing in that context, even if you feel like there's no ties, there's no commitment, there's no strings attached, and it's just this open relationship with whatever is there, then I think it's almost like the law of attraction, you know? The more you feel in power in these aspects within yourself, the more you attract what needs to be done, what needs to be said, what needs to be musicalized in that sense. So yeah, we're in service, right? Being connected in that sense means being in service, whether in relation to yourself, in some sort of process you're going through in your life, whether in terms of moving energies in the space, because stuff might be there that needs to be moved in through our voices or movement or just the collectiveness of it or the social aspect that will be moved. But there is this kind of sense of urgency in a way of moving things forward with ease. I think ease is also a big thing. When you do it with ease, It's also the same thing as singing, right? You can sing and feel like I am performing, but then there's a something that's straining, like ah. Or you can use the power of your voice, but being relaxed and at ease because you trust it, because you just trust whatever's going to come out.
Hmm.
Even when you're in a sense of no judgment, when you're in the no judgment zone, because I oftentimes also say there's not really right or wrong in improvisation, right? So we're not really grading people, we're not comparing too much. It's just like being connected with your authentic self, and then it's just like work with that. Even if there's one note that doesn't sound so good to you, but then okay, as some wise people say, it's the note after that one that is going to kind of define the relationship between things. And in the collectiveness that you were talking about, it's all the notes together and what everybody's doing in terms of active listening and active presence in order to really support that whole piece and elevate the energy. Because everybody, the thing is, everybody feels that when it happens, and we all feel that it moves us. If something works, we know it, we feel it, and there's some element of transformation or breakthrough that happens. Could be something really small, like, oh, I came into this room feeling a little and now I just feel a little lighter or happier or more joyful. Or it can be something deep that brings you to a certain trauma, a certain relationship with parents or friends, something deep that has been blocked in some way. And all of a sudden, just because of that aspect of flow and elevation, it becomes something else.
Hmm.
And that is really beautiful to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, as we were speaking, of course, it made me think of Bobby. It made me think of, the way he started engaging with the audience in those first, film
Mm,
performances, of how much it had to do with drawing what was already in the room with like
mm,
supreme mastery and delight. And then it made me think of one of my favorite artists called Ganavia. I'm not sure if you know her. And she recently did a performance. She's to me one of the most beautiful singers. And she kind of sings sacred music in
mm,
complete state of being. And then I was reading how she was posting some reviews from London that were kind of saying that it was a bit boring to, a critic mindset, someone in the audience who came with the critic mindset, observing flow and seeing it as something subpar because it was not necessarily really loud or in your face or, very direct. So actually, my next question to you,
mm.
I wonder what's your perception on how could we, yeah, bring this sense of collective intelligence on stage? Where do you see the most kind of potential in today's world of how this can be? Does it have to be on a stage? Is it enough that it just lives maybe in, in workshop settings, in kind of environments that are more intimate? Does it have to be on a bigger stage, like Bobby put it, with circle songs or other examples? What's your perception of that as we move into the future?
I think it should or could start in smaller settings so that when it's applied to larger settings, it becomes more effective. I think it is a similar logic to how do you change the world? First, you have to change yourself and you have to see and notice that change in your own realm, in your own bubble, in your own uh, social environment. And when that happens, again, law of attraction, it's more likely that you will then pass that knowledge and that energy to other people that contact you. So someone who works this kind of intelligence, this kind of presence in life in general, I think it is then transversal to anything you do. So whether you're collaborating or doing something in a smaller, intimate venue, uh, or whether you're performing in an arena for 60,000 people, I think there are important aspects of that intelligence that will then be passed on to the people and they will create a change. They will have a positive impact and reinforcement on something related to those people's lives. That's really what I believe in. Um, when you work on this sensibility, then you pass it, then it's being used in everything you do, in the words that you choose when you're speaking, in the notes that you choose when you're singing, in the colors that you choose when you're painting, in the food that you choose to eat when you're hungry or when you're having a meal. Um, and sometimes you might realize it. You might see it. Some other times it just you don't because you're busy with other things and it's too loud and noisy out there. Um, but this work of awareness and trust, it is really important. And to work on that specifically, I do believe that the best settings are workshops, retreats, and classes. Yeah, I do think it's in the educational, pedagogical, and social environment that those thrive. If you just work on that in performance setting, in big performance setting, I'm not saying it's ineffective, but it's definitely very different. I think a lot of this work is related to expression, communication, and vulnerability, and those things are more. It's better to work them in this kind of like a workshop setting where you can, as a facilitator, connect with people in those aspects, and you can bring out the best in them, and you can challenge them, and you can trigger them, and you can motivate them and inspire them way more than just going to a concert and seeing an artist perform. You can feel more emotionally attached to a performance, more or less attached, but this work comes from closeness, so some sort of intimacy, and usually that intimacy is more obtained in contexts like workshops or retreats. If you work with the same group of people for a while, or if you have a deep session with a group of people, then I feel the transformation is bigger. And I see these things in some of the activities that I do. Like, you see how people come in, you see how people leave, and you see the feedback you get from them. And the work that we do in improvisation is really transformational. And that's why I think this is a discipline that should be everywhere, in schools, in universities, in people's, in companies, in the corporate world. This should be a major thing that should be developed and worked from an early age. Because, I mean, at least here in Portugal, I do still see that improvisation is mostly associated with theater, and comedy improv, and with jazz specifically. And jazz has a format. Jazz has formats and different structures and ways of doing things, but I like to see and feel improvisation in a much broader way. It's like I go to the core of the concept and how can I apply that in my day-to-day life, but especially when I work, when I'm facilitating a space, or when I'm performing an improvised piece, whenever I have an opportunity to show something to people. That's what it comes down to. Having an opportunity to learn from others, to be inspired by others, as well as sharing a part of yourself. And it's in this exchange that I think we create a bigger opportunity for impact on
Mm-hmm.
people's lives. And so we have to start small so that then that impact perhaps enlarges and becomes bigger, and it starts reaching more and more people.
Yeah, and as you were mentioning, in workshop settings that are more intimate, you can kind of have different processes going on at the same time, right? It can be quite multi-layered, and you can also kind of expand and create awareness and then bring something very specific. You can think about the social aspects of that work, and bring
Hmm.
kind of different perspectives. You can challenge in a different way. You can bring in different realities of, yes, now we are, all together, and now we can talk about something very specific that might actually be in someone's way of being authentic, because sometimes I like
Absolutely.
this notion of, that kind of authenticity is also a privilege. You have to feel safe. You have to feel
Yeah.
like you're in the right space to be open. And there's some factors that make people, be more able or not to do so. So I definitely agree. Then maybe just to almost conclude at the beginning, we were saying, yeah, we don't sing in person. I'm waiting, Portugal has some great improvisers. You could have a festival. I know we have a vocal being retreat, but we're waiting for a school, a program, an event. So maybe this is a question to finish just about your looking into the future for yourself. What are you most excited about? What kind of projects? I sometimes ask people in these interviews, if budget was not an issue or sort of time, if you could have a dream team of people, venue,
Oof.
place, and community, what would you do in that space? Something like that.
Wow, that is a broad question.
It
I
is.
like it. Um, well, first of all, let me also say, picking up on what you were saying previously, that I've learned to enjoy and to appreciate more and more those intimate settings. So oftentimes in our world, and in what we do, people try to aim big. Like, I want big venues, a big team, lots of audience, lots of money, lots of visibility, lots of this and that. And I've learned that the best settings for myself as an artist, as a performer, as a facilitator, but also the ones that I feel have more potential for inspiration and transformation for others and for myself are the small ones, are the intimate settings. Those are precious. They're absolutely precious. So I like those. And I like diversity. So the ideal scenario for me, answering your question, is diversity. Because not only I feel like that's a way to reach out to different groups of people with different backgrounds, different cultures, different habits. So then from that, I learn more as a facilitator, as an artist, and I learn more about myself just by witnessing and observing different people and working with them. But it's also a possibility for more people to perhaps feel inspired by what I have to give or say or do. Um, so an ideal scenario for me is, on one hand, I would like to have an opportunity, and maybe it will happen, but I would like to create an opportunity where I develop some sort of regular work with the same group of people. So creating a space for like a lab space or a space for exploration and improvisation where I just have a fixed place, let's say, and every week or every other week, whatever, you would just have people come in and do some sort of work. I like that regularity, and I haven't been having that kind of regularity in my life and in my work recently in the last years. So that is one thing. The other thing is keeping the traveling going. I need to go abroad. I need to be in contact with these different places and different scenarios in order to cultivate myself. It's going back to the beginning of the conversation. This is that individual personal work that I feel needs to be done for you to be as sharp as you can as a person and as an improviser. So I personally, I've discovered I need that. I need to once in a while go away from Portugal, get out of my country, and be with different people, different scenarios, different kinds of work contexts, different kinds of things that I have to deal with because I learn in that variety and in that diversity. And obviously, I have a lot of people that I like a lot and that I would consider my closest collaborators and friends if I had to put a dream team together. I also really appreciate the kind of the kind of work that Rhiannon's doing with murmuration and blending full presence in body and movement as well as in voice and music. To me, that's very rich. So gathering a group of people and doing those kind of explorations, I think it goes deep. It goes deep. So I can imagine a lot of different things. But you know what? Sometimes I also still have that little bug of missing the big stages,
Hmm.
the touring and the performing in a different setting, just because I like it as well and I learn from it. I do still think that the main gift that I can have for myself and others is through facilitation. So workshops, retreats, classes, seminars, things like that. I still think that's the core of it. But I like performing. I like being on stage. I like challenging myself. And so sometimes I still miss that. And I haven't had a lot of that lately, but it's okay. I'm also focusing a bit more on my home, the family, and developing other things in life and just being okay with what the universe is bringing. Because this is an attitude that I've been keeping for a while. And I know that it could be polemic, or some people might feel like they don't understand this perspective, but I do believe that the universe brings us what we need to experience. So the more we trust this and the more open we are to this with ease, with that sense of ease, then the quicker you will attract those things to you. Of course, there are decisions that need to be made and there's work that needs to be done. But ultimately, it's about having that kind of faith and trusting the universe and the plan that either you defined whenever you incarnated, if you believe in that, or the plan that God might have for you, if you believe in God. I mean, this can be translated into many different languages and beliefs. But it is this sense of trusting that there's some sort of like greater plan. And so we're here for a reason, and we're meant to do different things, and we're meant to contribute in different ways. So I want to keep doing that. I want to keep trusting and seeing what comes my way. And then I want to feel useful and helpful. And I want to feel that I'm contributing to society in this way, because I guess this is one of my main ways to contribute, is being out there working, getting to meet different people, and getting to facilitate these containers and these spaces of playfulness and creativity and consciousness and awareness and vulnerability, because I do really believe that this is how people can develop themselves and go further in their own processes in a really nice and deep way. So
Yeah.
yeah, I want more opportunities to do that.
Mm.
I would like for
And
that to happen.
exactly. And in the end, improvisation is action. Improvisation leads to action, right? So along with all of those things, it can also lead to upholding democracy, regulating AI. We don't know, right? All of those are also options.
Absolutely.
I
That's why it should
wanna
be across that's why it should be across the
exactly,
board. There should
exactly.
be improvisation classes for CEOs. Improvisation should be a major discipline in all courses in universities and in colleges, in schools, and in kindergartens. It should really be like a big thing that we should be working on together, collectively.
Yeah, thank you so much. And as you mentioned, the idea of diversity, I also want to welcome everyone that is listening to the well. We have members in 50 countries. There's currently more than 1,300 of us. It's a place for everyone interested in vocal improvisation. It's free to join, to upload your events and be part of the community. Tiago, thank you so much. I hope we get to sing in person soon.
I
Come
hope so
on.
too. Thank you very much, Yaka. Also, you don't have to come to Portugal. I can also go to wherever you are. So
I
let's
was
make it
just
happen.
thinking, somewhere
You're
in the
also a
middle. It's
traveled
probably,
person.
it's probably going to be France. Well, thank you for the conversation. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
everyone who's listening. See you soon. Keep connected with the well, and all the best, Thiago, in Portugal, and see you somewhere on the road.
All the best to you too. Lots of love. Take care, man.
Ciao.